This is our third session, lab session. So what we are doing is every class what we take, okay, we try to implement that in the lab session. Okay. In the last meeting, what we discussed is about classes and objects and constructors. Sorry. How we create a class, how we create an object. What is a constructor? Static members and access specifiers, private, public, protected. Okay. In today's session, inshallah, we'll try to implement these. So we need to know about class, how to create a class, how to write a class, okay? And then we'll talk about objects, how we create an objects from the classes, okay? Like we discussed in the theory session, a class is a template for the objects, okay? Now the next thing, to create objects, we call the constructors from the class, right? So we'll talk about constructors here. Then it's functions in the class. Okay, basically we call them as getter and setter methods. Get and set method. Yeah, it is getter and setter is also called accessor and the mutator methods. What we write the get method is also called accessor method, and what we write the set method is also called mutator method. Okay, and we also have a look into the access specifier, that is private and public. Fine. There is also protected and default. Okay, for now we will discuss on this. Clear? Now to discuss on this, we will take an example. It's fine. Now let's take an example of write a class called circle. Okay, let me increase the font of this, it will be easy for you. Write a class called circle with one data field, radius of type double. Okay, now this circle, we all know that a circle has the radius, right? So knowing the radius, we can find the area of circle. Simple, area of a circle by knowing the radius. So what is the area of a circle? If you know the radius, it is pi r square, pi radius square. Okay, now we say write a constructor to create objects. So here we need a constructor to create or to initialize the circle objects or circle radius. Okay, then we write some getter and setter method for radius, get radius, set radius. Okay, and then we write a method called area to calculate area of circle as this. Area is equal to pi r square. Okay. Now we will include here a static variable. Let's include a static variable to count number of circles created, because what we studied in our last meeting, a static variable is one value for all objects. It's called a class variable. Okay, radius, every circle will have different radius. It means every object will have a difference variable. So radius is called an instance variable or object variable. So radius, for example, circle 1 has radius 1.0, circle 2 has radius 2.3, circle 3 has radius, let's say, 7.8. Okay, so radius here is called an instance variable or an object variable because every object will have its own radius. But the static variable is called class variable, and this variable is a one single variable for every object. It is shared for all the objects. So hence we can count it by using the static variable. We can count how many objects are created. So how many objects here? It means how many circles. Clear? So how many objects here? It means how many circles are created. Fine. So for this we try to write a class and create objects and call these getter and setter methods, invoke the constructors, fine, and try to print the area of the circles by using the objects. So this is our problem. We'll take this problem as an example problem and we try to implement this in NetBeans. Okay, this will give you an idea about how to write a class, constructors, how to write constructors, what are constructors, how to declare in static variables, and how to use them, how to write getter and setter methods, and other methods inside the class. Then later we will see how we create objects and call those methods, okay, to complete our class implementation. Fine. Is it clear? The students online, is the problem clear to all? How about the other students? Is the problem clear to all? Okay. Fine. So let's do this in the NetBeans. Let's create a new project. Java application. I'll call this an M251 underscore lab 3. Okay. So this is our package, lab 3 package. Fine. Now in this one, sorry, this is in lab 2. Where is lab 3? Yeah, here. Yeah, this is our lab 3 class. Fine. We are adding a new class here, new Java class called circle. Okay, it says to add an variable. Okay, so basically we keep the data fields all private. the data fields is kept all private double radius. Okay, now if you want to add some variables, fine, like name of the circle is filled, color of the circle, you can add here. Okay, then this about the variable. Then we have constructors. See, constructors are always public, okay, and has same name as the class name. Constructors are always public and has same name as class name. And you can set the constructors can be a default constructor or a zero argument constructor that does not take any argument, here. And here you can set the initial value or the base value for the radius. So let's say that radius initial value is 1.0. Fine. All other settings, if you want to set here, you can set it here. Fine. Then we can also have a argument constructor as public, the same name as class name, double radius r. Okay, this r is an argument to set the radius of a circle when you create object. Radius is equal to r. Okay. Now, or you can also set, for example, if it is confusing, you want to keep it as radius, you can say radius is equal to radius. But to make it more clear, you can use this keyword here. This dot radius is equal to radius. Now this refers to the class radius, and this radius will be referred as an argument radius. To make a difference here, if you are using the same variable name here, okay, and it is always a good practice to use this that represents the current object variable. This dot radius is equal to radius. We can also do other settings here. For example, if you have a name here, you can set the name. You can take the argument name, set the name of the circle. Color of the circle, you can set the color of the circle. Okay, so for example, if you want to take color of the circle, private string color. Fine. Now you can also set the default color. Color is equal to, let's say default color is black. Right. Or you can set the color here. You can pass the argument just to set the color, string color, and say this dot color is equal to color. So whatever you pass the color, for example blue, so for blue will be set here. Fine. Now these constructors are used to create objects. When you create objects, these constructors are called. Fine. Now we talk about like to have a static variable. Fine, or a class variable that is used to count how many objects are created. Fine. So let's keep a static variable here, public static int count circle, and it is initialized to 0 as we want to count. Now how we create object? By calling constructor, by calling these constructors. Clear? Type. If you want to create this, when you create, you will increment this counter. Fine. So I will increment here count circle plus plus. So what happens? Whenever you create an object, counter will be incremented by calling this circle, the default argument. And at the same time, by calling this argument constructor also, I'll increment the counter. So if you are creating one object by this and one object by this, two circles are created. So 2 times it will be incremented. Fine. So the next is to have the getter and the setter methods. Okay, like set radius, set color, get color. Fine. These methods are kept always public, and if you are setting anything, the method does not return anything. So we say public void set radius of double radius. So this is to set the radius. Okay, you say this dot radius is equal to radius. This is to set the radius. Okay. Similarly, if you want to get the radius, we write the public method public get will return the radius. So what is the return type here? It will return the radius. So what is the return type? Double get radius. It does not take any argument, it just return radius. This dot radius. See, if you don't write this keyword, it's okay. Okay, but if you write it, it's good practice. Fine. Then next, similarly, we write set color and get color. So can you just tell me how I write set color? Public void set color of string color. Then this dot color equal color. So this is set color. And how about the get color? Public string. See, as a getter methods, get color. Getter method will return the color. So ايش type الcolor? String. فلازم يكون return type هنا string. Okay, so we should have a return type as a string. So we said I return what? This dot color. So here it is not void, it is string. So whenever there is a get method always return a value. So there should be a return type. If it is returning radius, it is of type double. So we should have a double return type. If it is returning color, of type string. So if it is returning any boolean, we should have return type boolean. Okay. So remember these getter and setter method, because you will be tested in the exam. In the exam, there will be one question of similar type. Okay, you will be tested in the exam to write the getter and the setter method for the variables or for the data fields. So you have to write this, how we write the get method, how we write the set method. You should know this. Fine. Okay, and finally, we should have one method called area that returns the area of the circle. Fine. So how we write the area? It returns the area. Public double get area. For example, let's say get area. Okay, and it takes radius. Double radius. It takes radius and it returns the area. Return math.py multiply by r square, radius into radius, or math.power of radius comma 2 r square or radius square.
Why do we need to put as an argument for the radius since we have one in the class?
So we didn't read, we just, okay. So we use the object radius, that's good. So we don't need the argument here. We just call the object what we invoke that has the radius. So based on that radius, the area will be calculated. It's not the augmented radius. Okay, fine. So this is our circle class. Yes, right. So have a look into this. Fine. Before we continue.
سهل معايا بس هتكتب القطع بدون بتاع والستة تحطهم معي يسموني بدون اذا حطيت طيب انت ايش هاخذ من القطع والستة خلاص طيب لا ماشي ايش التشاؤم هذا صدق نفس عن ايش هذا اصلا ما صورت والله بالعكس هنا تقدر تستخدم يعني 12 فاينل ما تقدر تستخدم كل شيء تقريبا كل شيء محتمل
Okay, so the next job here is to write to create the objects in the main method. Okay, so we write a separate class. We need a separate class where we keep hello. Do you have the sound? Hello. Can you hear me? No, I think it's clear. Hello. Fine. So the next job here is to create the objects. So in creating the objects, we call the constructors. We create circle, for example, C1 as first circle is equal to new circle. This is a default object, invoking default constructor with the default value. So C1 will be having the default color and the default radius, which is 1.0. So you can check it by printing the object, for example, the radius system.out.println C1 radius as C1 dot get radius. Get radius will get you the radius of the circle, of the C1 circle. Fine. Okay, if I want the color, what I have to do?
Black.
No, if the color will be black. If I want to print the color here, get color. C1 dot get color. Okay, so this will be system.out.println C1 color is C1 dot get color. Okay, so you have the color black, and if you want the area, C1 area, C1 dot get area. So this will return you the area 3.14. Okay, Now area, if you want to print it in more precise way, we can use printf and percentage point to f, what you studied already in M105, okay, using percentage printf. So we printed the area 3.14. Now if you want to check how many objects or how many circles are created, we call that class variable count, okay, to check how many objects are created. So it says system dot out dot println the number of circles created plus the class name circle dot count circle. Okay, so counter is the one which keeps the count. Fine. So here we have number of circles created 1. Okay. Now let's create another circle with argument constructor. Circle C2 is equal to new circle of, I'll pass the argument radius, for example with the radius 2.3 and the color blue. Okay, so here another circle is created C2 with the radius 2.3 and blue color. And if you want to check these properties of C2, you can check it here. C2 radius, C2 dot get radius, C2 color, C2 dot get color, C2 area, C2 dot get area. A number of circles created at this point is 2, okay, because one by default constructor, one by using the argument constructor. So we have C1 color, sorry, radius, color and area, and then C2 radius, color and area, number of circles created 2. Okay, so this way we create the objects, we call the methods from the class, and we keep the count of number of objects created. Okay, so with this we got an implementation of classes, how to create a class, including the data fields in the class, private members, static variables, that is called class variables, writing constructors, writing getter and setter methods, writing other functions or methods inside a class. Then in a separate class of a main method, including the creating an object, and how we call these methods to get the properties of those objects, the radius or the data fields and the functions, calling the data fields and functions and checking how many objects are created. Fine. So this gives an complete implementation of these topics what we discussed. Okay, so with this I leave you here. Take the same example, practice it, and try more examples. Like we created a circle class, you try to create a square class or a rhombus class. Okay, take the properties of the rhombus or a rectangle class with height and the width, area of rectangle, perimeter of rectangle. Okay, get height, get width, set height, set width. Fine. So this one you will get a better idea about writing the classes, creating objects. Now, final private class circle. Yeah. Private access specifier. Private this will be inside the class. You cannot access these variables outside the class directly. ايوه ما نقدر استدعي الفاريبلز زي الكاونتر انا استدعي الكلاس نيم دوت كاونتر صح، ولكن الكلر والراديوس ما نقدر نستدعي. This is called encapsulation and we are hiding the data from outside access because data is important, right? This is simple idea and just give you a feel of it. But if you think something big, a big program, a big application, where data is very important, like you have the bank application. So bank applications, data is very important. Customer data, account number, is balance, transactions. So we want to keep the data private. We don't want anyone to access this data directly. So that's why we keep those as private. So it is a practice for us. It's a practice for us to keep the data private and keep the methods public. Okay. You can also keep the data public, no problem. If you keep it public, it's okay. But it is easily accessible outside the class, in the main method or in any other class. Okay. So with this, I leave you here. If you have any questions, please. Students online, any questions?